So NASA-JPL employees hold protests against the vaccine mandate. So they held this protest, and this happened on Monday at around 7 a.m. all the way till noon. And they're protesting the White House vaccine mandate, specifically demanding alternatives to the vaccine's dubious performance and citing a list of demands, including a route to a non-mRNA vaccine. And we have the press release. I was sent this press release, and I'm going to read it. They say, we are NASA scientists and engineers. And it's the next one. We are NASA scientists and engineers. We can do math, run the numbers, and model the COVID pandemic infections, which they did. Hospitalizations, deaths, and vaccine adverse reactions. Look at how wrong the CDC has been with its predictions. Either they are very bad models, can't do math, or they are lying. We are the working people of the United States. From the vaccine's use of aborted fetuses, animal experimentation, to just knowing your susceptibility to a deadly or debilitating adverse reaction, we have the right to seek an alternative to the 3 provided vaccines and their dubious performance. Again, this is straight from the NASA-JPL press release. This is not what we're saying. This is what they're saying. We urge JPL management to reevaluate the terms of the vaccine mandate and square them with employee rights by addressing our list of demands. JPL management must promise to honor its employees' religious freedoms. JPL management must explain the exemption process. Who decides? What is the appeal process? JPL management must allow time for the Novavax option for those who find the route of a possibility, a non-RNA vaccine, traditional style vaccine. I think they meant RNA. JPL management must expand COVID testing to all employees on lab. Hold on a second. There it is. And no, I got it. It just keeps. There we go. It keeps doing that. It keeps going away. And then the JPL management must expand COVID testing to all employees on label. And they must acknowledge changing world information, which is disqualifying some vaccines and some demographics, and must make resources available to assist those who are vaccine injured. We will be protesting at the White House vaccine mandate from 7 a.m. to 12 noon this Monday. So they were there at the corner of Oak Drive and Foothill in Pasadena. And so there was this article put out by the Pasadena Now, and they talked about how, a group from the JPL Jet Propulsion Laboratory were planning to demonstrate, and they have to have their final dose by the 23rd of November, or they will be put on 6-week paid leave and then terminated. It says the policy says effective December 8th, 2021, vaccination will be a condition of employment for JPL employees and a requirement for badged affiliates and contractors working for JPL, regardless of whether you work on a lab, at another JPL facility, or elsewhere off-site, the policy says. Those who fail to meet the requirement will be placed on a 6-week unpaid leave, JPL business administrator and JPL Novax mandate member Taylor Ingram said. At that point, if we're not vaccinated, we will lose our jobs. JPL has not given us the option to continue testing. This applies for employees that are working at home full-time, employees that are working out of state, she said. So we're going to lose our jobs, and we believe that there are as many as 1,000 employees at JPL who have not received the vaccine, according to Ingram. However, we don't have any way of finding out what that number actually is unless we start protesting and making other employees aware of our movement. The demonstration is not in opposition to vaccination, but in support of personal liberty, said JPL Engineering Development technician and JPL Novax mandate member Caleb Macy. There's a number of us who are very concerned about the implications of freedom, and if the government or anyone is given the right to tell you what you have to put in your body, that leads down a very dark path. He said, we have both people who are vaccinated and not vaccinated in our group, but everybody is not just wanting to stand for body sovereignty, the right to choose, and medical freedom, Macy said. Several employees expressed concerns over the approach to medical religious exceptions to the policy. A procedure will be put in place for employees to apply for exemptions on November 1st, according to Ingram. So they just put in a procedure on November 1st, and they have to have their shots done by the end of the month. And then if they don't have it by the beginning of next month, they're going to be fired. A procedure will be put in place but we're not given clear information on how it's going to be, of how it's going to go. We've only been given examples of what the paperwork might look like and no clear process. They're only giving us an 8-day period to submit an exemption. And
I can move it up here.
That seems like they're trying to run the clock and not really allow reasonable accommodation or dissent from just falling in line and taking the vaccine or losing your job. Because being told do this or lose your job, you lose what you've worked for, everything you've worked for in your career. You can't support your family. That's not giving you a choice. That's forcing you, and that's wrong. JPL has traditionally been a secure place to work, Macy added. It's mind-blowing to me that while there is no category here in JPL's guidelines that this is a fireable offense, the issue is much larger than any single employer. The protest is not just for JPL, it's for everyone's freedom and their right to choose what goes in their body and to be able to have strongly held beliefs.
Yeah.
All of us in this group and a lot of other people here at JPL are looking at possibly losing our jobs, and we're okay with that consequence because these are our beliefs and our principles, and we're going to stand on them. Another employee who asked that his name not be published said it was daunting to face potential career annihilation over the vaccine mandates. So these people are not Trump supporters. These people are not necessarily, right? Some of them, I don't know. They have, people from the left and the right in this. And they're standing against these mandates for a specific reason. This person said, I spent 6 years getting education for this field. I was not under the impression when I did that I was going to be forced into medical injections for this career. And now I'm faced with not being able to pursue my career further. So there's a lot of us in this boat, and it's tragic. It's cruel, honestly. So a lot of these people that spend a lot of money, a lot of time dedicated to this profession are in jeopardy of losing their career, their job, and their economic stability. And also, they're also just kind of turned off as to what that's.
I know. I want to go over that one.
Oh, okay. They're also just kind of turned off as to what, why this is happening. These people are literal rocket scientists. A lot of them, they're scientists. So when these liberals come on and say, well, you don't know, you don't get science, you're not following science, this completely destroys their narrative when there are people that are protesting.
I think this is so big that it's JPL and NASA scientists, some of the smartest people out there, right? And you just look at this press conference, this press release, man, that you put out there, whatnot, the way they go over it's used fetuses to animal rights, animal experimentation, in fact, whatnot. They list everything there. And they also talking about the religious freedoms. I mean, they left no stone unturned in this press release over here and what they're fighting for, whatnot. Even kind of talking about the history, the way the CDC oversold these vaccines, fam, and whatnot. They also want to know about the appeal process. Why isn't there any transparency on this appeal process? We saw this in the NBA, the way people would deny religious exemption. Well, what was the appeal process? How did you come to that conclusion? They want to know that. So the way they're putting this all out there, I think, is great. And a lot of people who are protesting against this are going to use this information moving forward, fam. I think this is amazing.
Yeah.
So do you want to get to Johnny's stuff?
Yeah. So Jonny went on the scene, right?
Jonny on the scene.
And he got a lot of testaments from several people. So let's go check out this thread because he interviewed, I think, 2 people. And we have some footage of the protest. So let's just show a little bit of that footage. He said, breaking NASA-JPL. Scientists and supporters protesting outside of JPL against vaccine mandates.
No mandates. Don't mistake tyranny for science. No vax mandates. Stand up for freedom. JPL, no vax mandate. Gmail.com.
That's what the news said. It's raining.
How's it going?
Where's your umbrella?
Vaccines kill.
It's raining. That's what I heard on the news.
Scares me. JPL, no vax mandate. Vax does not spread.
Yeah.
Fam,
So-
did you like the big needle?
Yeah, that big needle. It's scary.
Look at
So I want to show this one in particular. PhD Todd Jones, one of the main organizers, explains the work he does as a scientist and the fact that there are thousands of employees, or he said, Taylor said at least 1,000 who have not, shown their vaccination status. So let's play that video.
That are also against this, that perhaps maybe aren't out here.
Well, based on the number of what they call attested people who have attested to having gotten the vaccine, it looks like there's about 1,000 people who didn't do it yet. And this group is, I don't know if you can estimate as well as I can, about 50 here, but then we're larger too, because not everyone wanted to show up and show their face and take the risk of retribution. Obviously, there is some risk. There's any form of retribution is subject to legal consequences also.
Yeah, that are also against this, that perhaps maybe aren't.
Right. So he was saying that the people, there are 50 people that showed up to the protest, but there's a lot more people that are involved. They just didn't want to show their face for fear of retribution, because we know what happens. A lot of people have been fired for voicing their opinion on this issue. And, he later on says on the next one that if people want to get the vaccine, they should. And I applaud the people who've been brave and took the risk to get the vaccine. I'm not willing to take that risk at this time with the 3 vaccines available. And so I want to show this one because he said, we've been working here in the pandemic for 18 months now. I come in many days a week and I get tested 3 times a week and never shown positive for COVID-19. He says, I'm safer than the vaccinated people who are not tested, because they're not testing the vaccinated people. So
and that one got a lot of views.
Let's show this one right here.
Yeah.
If people want to get a vaccine, they should. And I applaud the people who have been brave and took the risk to get the vaccine. I'm not willing to take that risk at this point with the 3 vaccines that are available. And so I'm supporting the other people here who don't want to take the vaccine because they're
awesome. And then this one right here.
We've been working here in pandemic for 18 months now, something like that. And I've been coming in many days a week, and I go and I get tested, and I get tested 3 times a week, and I've never shown positive for COVID. And I'm safer than the vaccinated people who come in who are not tested, and they're walking around. They very well could have COVID. They don't know it, and in fact, many of them do. That's how COVID continues to spread.
Exactly.
We've been working here in pandemic for.
So then he also said it's all about the money. Pharmaceutical companies are making billions of dollars, and they've got the politicians wrapped around their finger, and they basically tell politicians what to do with the rest of their country.
Yeah. How long have you been working here at JPL?
That great.
Oh,
1 second, Oz. And then the next one, he says vaccines were given the emergency use authorization on fraudulent terms. Ordinarily, such a thing would only be given if there were no treatments. When asked about what treatments work, PhD and NASA-JPL employee said ivermectin, and cites Uttar Pradesh's success with bringing daily cases down to single digits. Let's play this one.
The vaccines themselves were given the emergency use authorization on fraudulent terms. Ordinarily, such a thing would only be given if there were no treatments.
What treatments do you see that actually work?
I don't know all of them, but I know about the one that everyone jokes about, ivermectin. It's been used by people for 30 years, and it's been given to 3 billion people for its primary purpose, which is for parasites and things like that. So if you look at the case of ivermectin, and you don't listen to what the corporate media is what kind of propaganda they're giving you, you can look at with your own eyes and see the state called Uttar Pradesh in India, which has 230 million people, and it's almost, it's bigger than most countries, almost as big as the United States. They currently have single-digit cases of COVID daily, and they've had single-digit cases of COVID for several months now, once they came off of the initial Delta spike. And what helped them come off the initial Delta spike? Well, the government in Uttar Pradesh specifically, not India in general, but specifically Uttar Pradesh, issued home kits. And one of the contents inside the home kits was ivermectin. People who knew that they came into contact with somebody else who might have had COVID, they took the ivermectin. And so the ivermectin has been used widely in Uttar Pradesh, and they have literally flatlined their COVID. And you can look it up on Google COVID stats, pops right up, punch in on India, and go to the state of Uttar Pradesh, and it's flat. Interesting. There's another state in India, Haresh, starts with a K, I forget exactly. People in charge of that state, the government, forbid the use of ivermectin. And that state is responsible for almost all of India's COVID cases right now.
Right? Interesting.
Where does he get that information from?
I don't know.
If there was only a network or a show that would talk about all those things that he talked about.
And all that information with these people that have talked about that are mostly not on YouTube. So the last video I want to play of this, because there's so many great videos. It's sad that the high school kids too came in, but when asked about where he leans politically, right? Let's see what he says, because a lot of the mainstream media, a thing is, these are a bunch of alt-right Trump supporters and they're just right-wingers and not smart and they're dumb. Well, let's see where this rocket scientist leans politically.
All these different groups coming together against it.
No, I'm not on the right. I'm definitely left. I supported Bernie in both of his campaigns for president, and with the way he was treated, pretty much soured me for life on corporate media.
Right, because corporate media treated him terribly, and then when he started promoting Joe Biden, then they were friendly. That's what I saw.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Bernie had to bend to whatever forces they're pushing on him.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, Todd. Mr. Jones, can I call you Dr. Jones?
Technically, it's Dr. Jones. I don't throw it out around a lot.
Thank you so much for the interview. We will be showing this around the world. All these different groups coming together.
Yeah.
Jonny on the spot, fam.
Yeah.
Guys, go like and share that tweet thread over there. Great work, Jonny on the spot.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And we were like, the only independent media, they're pretty much covering it, which is crazy. I mean, they had I think
CNN was there, right?
Local channel. No.
MSNBC wasn't there, fam? Wait. Fox was there, no, fam?
I didn't see Fox, fam. I don't, unless it was a local. I didn't see it. Maybe they did. I've seen like local independent media cover them. And guys, like I just want to say this destroys the narrative. This is why they're not. It destroys the narrative that it's only the right wingers. And by the way, I have to reiterate, we showed this statistic before. The people most adverse to or most vaccine hesitant data wise are people who hold PhDs and people who hold high school level education. I would classify that as book smarts and street smarts. Both know enough and suspect enough in their own ways to distrust the current system, right? And so that's why you see the vast majority of that curve, because a lot of people pointed out, wow, that thing is true then, because PhDs are, the Todd Jones had data he sent us, the actual data relating to his age group. And so it's funny because the whole thing is like, it's just a guy who sits on his toilet and reads some alt-right website, and that's why he's vaccine hesitant. Well, that's not necessarily true, and that's what we're showing here with
bullshit
reporting.
Dr. Jones got that from the Epic Times. But it's no, that is not true. That is a lie. That's a joke. I'm trying to be funny over here. But like you did say, fam, there's a lot of data out there, and that data is right in front of your face. You don't have to go far to search from it. Yeah, it gets shadow banned. It gets pushed aside. Never gets talked about on the mainstream media. They're just marching to the, the beat of their own drum over
Right.
their propaganda, but the data and the information is out there. I mean, the CDC contradicts themselves on a daily fucking basis, and it's corporately funded on the back end too as well.
But the CDC says the vaccines are safe and effective, and so
How safe
that
and how
is
effective now, fam?
because we're on YouTube, fam. The CDC says the vaccines
Oh, the
are safe
CDC,
and
yes.
effective. So I'm just letting you know that's what the CDC says. That now people have their disbelief in that, right? They say that they disagree with those beliefs, which is why we're showing you the JPL protest. And I think it's important to have that on YouTube because people need to see that there is opposition from not just, the PhD, but people who were Bernie Sanders supporters there. There was a few others of those there. There's everybody from the left to the right. That's what Jonny was saying, uniting and standing up to the mandates, which they view as, draconian and an insult to their career. So,
yeah. And, there was somebody on that has a new show coming out, right? And they were talking about, is Bernie Sanders a sellout? No, Bernie's saying the same stuff he was saying for years. No, Bernie is one of the biggest sellouts. Where is he at in this one right now? Where is he at? Nowhere to be found. Where is he at on a lot of things? I mean, he's just nowhere. He is MIA. Did he say shit about Julian Assange last week, fam? Not a goddamn word. And everybody has sold you out in Washington. You have no friends in Washington, and that's something you need to understand. The squad, Bernie, nobody.
Right. And so just going right along with this topic, Dave Smith, he's a comedian. He's a libertarian. I disagree with libertarians on a lot of things, primarily, capitalism. That's like the main thing, the free market, quote unquote. But when it comes to these mandates, a lot of them have been solidly against the mandates. Now, Dave Smith went on Fox and was on this little panel and basically kind of exposed the progressives and how they call themselves, anti-fascist and say they're for minorities. Well, how do these mandates play into the working class and minorities? Let's take a look at what he says.
Lose your basic fundamental human freedoms because he doesn't like the decision that you made. I will say this. If you believe that your basic liberties are predicated on the consumption of a product from a giant pharmaceutical company, you are a fascist. And I mean that to everyone on the panel, everyone listening at home. If you believe that someone does not deserve basic liberties unless they consume a product. No, actually, I do.
What is fascism?
Why don't you define it for me?
Yeah, what is fascism?
Define it.
No, we're not going to get into a definitional
war
here.
Hold on. You just told me I don't know what fascism means. Define it.
Which means you do know what it is. Excuse me.
Since I don't know what fascism is, can you tell me how Mussolini defined it? He defined it as a merger between corporation and state. These are not businesses deciding that they don't want customers in. This is the government telling businesses that they have no choice. Yeah. This is discrimination under the law. And it's interesting that these so-called progressives don't care that this is going to disproportionately affect minorities and immigrants. Oh, all of a sudden, that's not an issue, right? Having to show ID for voting, that's fascism, right? But this isn't a problem.
Right.
Boom.
That was only a portion of the video. And you know what? I'm gonna shout out. I want to shout out the person who posted it that I took it from. Keith Ward. Thank you, Keith Ward, for posting that video. It was an awesome video. Someone sent it to me and they were like, "Hey, look at this video." And it's funny. We've talked about multiple times. Pasta was like patting himself on the back. I just say that all the time. Yeah, it's a commonly known thing. And when people say, I was arguing with one of these cappuccino commies on Twitter because he was like, well, science is separate from the government. And I'm like, yeah, but we live in an oligarchy. These people say they want to overthrow the government. They say they want to get rid of the government. At the same time, they want to empower the current government by saying it's cheering when people are getting fired. That is anti-union. That's anti-worker. You're giving more power to the current system that's going to disempower you further, make it harder for you to protest or whatever, take over, whatever it is that you want to do. So it doesn't make any sense. So this does disproportionately affect minorities and working people because we've seen it in New York. We have seen how that's working for Black people. This is why people who are Black Lives Matter protesters are standing with people who are not from all sides of the political aisle against the mandates in New York. That's where you're going to be seeing more of that. In fact, if I were somebody that wants a general strike, that wants Medicare for all, I would align myself and build bridges with the people who are anti-mandate, because you're all losing your jobs, you're losing your rights. And at the end of the day, what the empire fears the most is a unity of the working class and the coalition building across all spectrums of the policies. Then after we regain control of our government, then we can argue about the detriments of capitalism and socialism and all of this. But at this point, what we're doing is we're shooting ourselves in our feet and fighting against each other and not really getting down to the nitty gritty. Imagine what it would be like if you had general strike workers fighting for better wages, also standing with people against the mandates allowing bodily autonomy. That would destroy the current system, and people are too stuck in their ideology to allow that to happen.
Yeah, it's funny, fam, because I was going to add this video of Glenn Beck of all people on the Blaze, talking about when people start to look up and realize who's standing with them. It's the working class, and that's the biggest fearful thing from the elites, because that's our number one problem. It isn't communism, capitalism, socialism. It's elitism. It's elitism. That's my personal opinion. Yeah. They're the ones pulling the strings and whatnot like that. I don't give a shit what system you have. If you have a small group of people, of elites, they'll manipulate any system to pit people against each other, and that's what they're doing right now. And for instance, what Dave Smith did over there was really great, because he pointed out the true definition of fascism, right? I've said it all before. I don't know if you know, I'm 61% Southern Italian, and I know Mussolini and whatnot, and I'm a civil liberties guy. But just so we understand this, what do you think, from being around a lot of progressives, and we heard him say this before, that's fascism, fam. That's fascism. What do you think their definition in their mind of fascism is? The progressives, the ones we were so close to, we marched in the streets with.
Their definition of fascism is just a right-wing ideology of, no workers' rights. They think that, no givings to, like, no social givings to the working class, right? There's no Medicare for all. That their idea of fascism is that there's corrupt politicians, and all those corrupt politicians are right-wingers, and there's no vaccines available for people. They view the vaccines as a good thing, which it should be a good thing. But then you have to look at as to why these people aren't allowing the Cuban vaccine, the Russian vaccine. Why is the U.S. government now not allowing people to use Novavax? Why is the U.S. government not allowing if it's about your health and your safety, then why are they not allowing that? So that's their definition is thwarted, because they don't understand. They think that science, because it's publicly funded, is separate from the government. But I'm telling you that the government and the lobbyists are owned by all these corporations and big pharmaceuticals, just like they're owned by the insurance companies, just like they're owned by every other corporation. That's why it is fascism, because you don't have a private sector and a public sector. At this point, they have merged together. And that's the definition of fascism. Their definition of fascism is just like what is on the right only. Yeah. They're not looking at the authoritarian aspect of everything else.
I think, when that lady said, "Oh, you don't have no idea what fascism is," I think a lot of it has to deal with almost like a white Aryan kind of it's kind of right. Close to racism.
Right.
Their definition of fascism.
Right.
Oh, it's just a white takeover. It's these domestic terrorists. This is what fascism is to them. They don't understand the nuances of the corporations merging with the government, how they suppress our voice, how they suppress our choices. They have to tell us what to do. That is what actual fascism is. And that's why they're so distorted, because they have it almost equivalent to racism. And, I'm saying, I'm not saying there isn't racism involved in, Nazi Germany's, Hitler's fucking fascism. It wasn't obviously Aryan white army kind of mentality, but that is not the actual true definition and the crux of fascism.
It's not the whole, because fascism can be, it's the exploiting a certain characteristic, right? So in Nazi Germany, it was, we want the superior Aryan race, blonde hair, blue eyes. We don't want the people that are less than us to rule. They're less than human. But they use different categories. So Jews to them were less than human. People of color were less than human. Now that society has advanced in a certain way, now they're using a different characteristic. So instead of it being the color of your skin as much, now it's, you're unvaxxed, so we're going to move you to this area, and now you're not allowed to have the basic right of going to school with without having this vaccine. You're not allowed the basic right of going to work or earning money unless you do what we tell you. You're not allowed the basic right of going to a restaurant or doing these things because you are deemed less than human. You're deemed dirty. It's the same mentality. It's just a different mechanism. It's the same mentality, but it's just a different point that they're pointing to. It's not your color of your skin. It's whether you're vaxxed or unvaxxed. And that is a dangerous slippery slope to go in, because it's no different. You're just changing the category of what it means. And at the end of the day, you're still having the government merge with these corporations who are ruling our country. And that's what we have to fight against. And obviously I disagree with Pasta. I mean, I think that the brunt of all of this it's the imperialist form, because imperialism is the highest form of capitalism, right? So I think that we have been allowed to make a profit off of people's sickness. Pfizer is all about profits. All of these companies are all about profits. It's all about making money. But it's beyond that point now, where we have to really ask ourselves, is it more than that? And that's all I'm going to say on YouTube, because is it more than just about making money? And I believe there's a sort of element of control to where now at this point that, that's where you surpass the whole economic aspect of it. And you're like, wait a minute. So now, beyond imperialism, is there the next stage, which is perhaps the stage of this, technocratic panopticon takeover via the fourth industrial revolution, where you now become the source of exploitation, exploiting your data, exploiting everything about you, and privatizing everything. I think we're surpassing imperialism to go into the next stage, which for a lot of these leftists and cappuccino communists, they have never dealt with that, because that didn't happen in 1917, Russia during the revolution. That didn't exist. So a lot of them can't wrap their mind around, well, this is good. Science is good. Progress is good. Yes, it is. But is it in the right hands of the right people? No, it's in the hands of a lot of psychopaths. And that's essentially
the elites.
The issue.
Well, we shouldn't even call them elites, because there's nothing elite about them.
The predator class.
The predator class is great. And like I said, that's my personal feeling, is that whatever system, it could be tweaked, it could be fucked with. And I'm not coming out with a pom-poms and whatnot for capitalism and think capitalism the only way. Obviously, I've said this before, mixed economies for me is the most important thing. However, we need to have people representation, like you talked about earlier in the segment. Once we get rid of all these assholes, then we can get in a room and decide what's best for all of us. But that needs to happen. And tactics like this are to keep us separated and keep us apart. And it is a shame. It is kind of mind-boggling when we see a lot of the progressives, the ones that we thought we were on the same fucking page with, just go completely authoritarianism, thinking that their way is better than anybody else's way. And it is sickening. And they are a part of fascism, because they are going along with the corporate media's mentality and the corporations' ways and means.